Christmas is meant to be the most wonderful time of the year, gathering joyfully with family and loved ones. But in 1945, one family was struck with disaster and the disappearance of half of the family in one night. In the small town of Fayetteville on December 24, 1945, a family of 9 went to bed, anxious for the following morning. George and Jennie Sodder were the parents of 10 children, ages ranging from 24 to 2 years old. One of their sons was on his way to the army, and the rest were at home with them. A fire flared up within their home at 1 a.m., and George, with his wife and 4 of their 9 children in the home, had escaped the blaze. Desperate to rescue his remaining children, George rushed back into the burning home but was unable to find his other children. After numerous calls to the fire department with no answers, then a neighbor personally calling the fire chief's home phone, did he start calling his firefighters into action one at a time. The fire department didn't make it to the house until 8 a.m., by which time the house was nothing more than smoldering ashes. The 5 children were declared deceased from the fire, even though no remains were found. The police report stated that the fire was caused by faulty wiring. The children's ages ranged from 14 to 5 years old. Their names were Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. They were all in the second upstairs bedroom of the home when it went up into flames in the middle of the night. Losing one child is heartbreaking enough, but to suddenly lose 5 beloved children is unimaginable. The Sodders started piecing together strange events in the month before the fire of their home and the disappearance of their children. A strange man visited their home when he suspiciously went to the back of their home and told George that the 2 separate fuse boxes would cause a fire someday, even though George had the wiring inspected and it was declared to be in fine condition. Near that same time, a man trying to sell life insurance told them, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed. You're going to be paid for the dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini," after George declined him. Mussolini was the Italian dictator he had outspoken his dislike over with the local Italian community and recently had some heated debates with them, which makes you wonder if they were the ones who were doing this and what kind of connections Mussolini had in the area. The older sons remembered a strange vehicle and a man parked along the road watching the younger children intently as they all walked home after school before Christmas break. Christmas morning around midnight, Jennie had a strange phone call from an unknown woman asking for an unfamiliar name. All she could hear was laughter and the noises of clinking glasses. An hour after the strange phone call, a loud thump on the roof woke Jennie up in the night, then a rolling sound followed by silence. Not paying attention or being suspicious, she went back to sleep with her family, but soon after the noises from the roof disturbed her sleep, a fire started engulfing the home. After the fire, more strange events and discoveries continued to pop up. What looked to be the remains of a pineapple bomb was discovered by one of the daughters in the dirt where the home once stood. A neighbor came forth stating they saw a man with a block and tackle for moving car engines was there the night of the fire, which could have been the cause for the family car to not start. Inspectors also concluded the electrical lines were cut rather than burned, meaning faulty wiring was not the real cause of the fire, despite what the official report stated. This made sense to the Sodders since there were lights on in the downstairs rooms before the fire. Then witnesses started to come forth about seeing the 5 children hours to weeks after the fire, all in the company of 4 Italian persons who were hostile and suspicious, each witness farther from the town of Fayetteville. Things continued to spiral around as the family investigated more and more, uncovering secrets about the people who were supposed to have been helping them find their children or even put out the fire that night years later. We always think of the fire department as reliable and dependable, but this wasn't the case for the Sodders. After hiring a PI, they discovered some things about the people in the months before the fire. It was discovered that the insurance salesman who threatened George was a member of the coroner's jury that deemed the fire to be accidental. Strange coincidence, right? What could this guy's motive be to lie about something like a house fire? The PI also uncovered a piece about the fire chief who had stated at the home that there were no remains, but whispered to others that there had been remains found. Desperate, George and Jennie got the fire chief to show them where the remains were and dug them up. Unfortunately, after sending the remains to a specialist, it was reported that the remains were a beef liver that was untouched by the fire. The fire chief later admitted to planting the beef liver in an attempt to placate the family enough to halt further investigations. He's a fire chief you don't want in your community. And why would you want to get them to stop investigating the destruction of their home and the loss of beloved children? Years passed and tips and leads still kept coming in, keeping George and his family determined to find their children. George followed many leads himself, but always came back empty-handed and with more questions than before. After seeing a newspaper piece about children in New York City, George rushed up there as one of the girls looked exactly like their missing daughter, Betty. Unfortunately, he never got to meet the girl, as the parents refused him and shut him out completely. They even refused so much as to speak to him, which is even stranger. In 1949, the Sodders decided to mount a new search of the destroyed home in the hopes of finding more clues or new evidence on what happened to their children. They brought in Washington, D.C. pathologist Oscar B. Hunter, who conducted a thorough excavation of the home. Mostly small items were found, such as coins, but the discovery of vertebrae was the most important. The bones were sent to the Smithsonian to be tested, and the results were strange. They were deemed to be from an individual estimated to be between 16 and 17 years old, but the max age could have been 22. The oldest Sodder boy missing was 14, but the report noted that the 14-year-old boy could have physical maturity signs similar to a 16 or 17-year-old. It was also noted that the bones displayed no signs of having been in or near a fire. It was noted in the report that the bones could have been in the dirt that was supplied to fill in the basement to create the memorial, which could be a hopeful sign for the family. Jennie investigated further into how bones were affected by fires, suspicious in the fact that nothing of the 5 children was left behind in the house fire. She conducted her own experiments with different animal bones and always got the same result: burnt and charred bones. The house was only burned for roughly 45 minutes, which alone is not long enough to destroy a human skeleton, let alone 5 of them. A coroner from a funeral home explained to Jennie that a house fire would have left behind skeletal remains, as a body burning for 2 hours at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit still left behind charred bones. Despite letters to the FBI asking for assistance, they never received any help from the local or federal agencies. At a court hearing, it was declared that Sodder's case was hopeless, and the case was officially closed again. Soon after the case was officially closed, they erected a billboard with their 5 missing children's photos and descriptions, as well as a reward for information leading to the return of their children. They were determined to find their missing children. In 1968, 20 years after the fire happened, Jennie received a mysterious letter about Louis, the youngest Sodder boy to be missing. The letter came with a photo of a young man in his 20s, with numerous similarities to the son that went missing. With their hopes rekindled on finding at least one of their children, they sent a PI to investigate, but the PI was never heard from again. They never published the letter, fearing harm would befall their son if they gave away the return address of the letter. George and Jennie never saw their missing children again, and the descendants of the family can only speculate about what happened. To this day, it is still a mystery what happened to the missing Sodder children. In 1968, George passed away, and a year later, Jennie followed behind him. Many of the distant relatives can only speculate on what happened to the missing Sodder children, but the youngest surviving child, Sylvia, doesn't believe they were killed. She still holds hope of seeing her lost siblings someday. What did you think of this story? Let us know in the comment section below.